ABC 123. Deliberation load. Settling the pond. Okay, theory involving the amount of load that decisions make on you throughout the day, and the idea or concept that in general you have a limited number of deliberations or decisions that you can make each day before you start making poor choices. That you can make so many good decisions before you start making bad decisions. And that people have found success in reducing the amount of deliberation by making as many decisions as possible simply following instructions, e.g. the CEOs wearing the same thing every single day so that they don't have to think about it. Marines and military having many things be routine, where it's the exact same process every single time, and stuff like that. And actually those might be important in figuring this out. But I'd like to talk about a few ideas I had on how the pond settles. The other analogy I have is that if you think of your mind as a lake with a whole bunch of silt at the bottom, every time you disturb the lake, every time you make a step or swim or move or do anything, it knocks a whole bunch of the silt up in the water and muddies the water. For a period of time until the silt can settle back down. And this is just an analogy, but I'd like to kind of go over some of the methods and means of how the silt gets knocked up into the water, how the silt gets delayed from falling back down, and how the silt falls back down. So first, so the mind it deals with what it sees. Every time that you think about anything, it affects that material, and you are creating a whole bunch of new relationships. So you see something, you hear something, you remember something, you think and imagine something, you ponder something and start tweaking various memories together to build something new. In order to do that, you are sending these concepts through hundreds, thousands, millions of processes, and the brain doesn't like to, how do you say it? So computers are designed to be precise. Every single a massive amount of the engineering that goes into computers is to avoid mistakes, avoid change and things like that. So that's why computers are binary. That the the easiest way to avoid miscommunication is to only have two signals, high and low, and then theoretically you can space those two signals farther apart than you could, say, 10 different signals. So you can space the distance between 0 and 1, or high and low. Low can be anything below 0.01 volts, and high can be anything above 0.5 volts or something like that. And then for the most part, you're fairly good. There's a few problems with that theory and stuff, but yeah. And then the other thing is that there's only two different signals to get, so it's easier to design things around, so it's, yeah. Computers are designed to not miscommunicate, to be precise. That every single step of the way has redundancies, has backups, has tons and tons of designs to avoid the communication altering and stuff like that. Biology, on the other hand, loves change. I'm trying to think. It loves change, and then the other thing is that it kind of needs to react to change. Biology does create redundancies and backups and forms of accuracy and stuff, but it has it provides redundancy in multiple layers of independent determination. So like as kids, we might have been told, oh, the queen ant or the queen bee controls everything, and we might have thought it was almost like mind control, like all of the bugs were just controlled by a single central mind or something like that. But if you do any kind of study into it, it's much more like a community or a civilization. The same way that people, I don't know, in my opinion, people that are naive often think that that people can be controlled more, that people's decisions can be made for them better from some central command post. That if you get a whole bunch of smart people in a room, they can make the decisions for cities and countries and worlds and stuff like that better than the individual people out in the world can. But then if you look at something as simple as how do you make a pencil, you realize very quickly that what seems like chaos is actually amazingly sophisticated and stuff, more sophisticated than you could probably, than like, it's more sophisticated than you could not imagine, more sophisticated, possibly than you can imagine, but more sophisticated than you could develop in a central command post. That the wood is harvested in one place. Or actually, no, the wood is harvested in many places. Some people buy wood from this place and from this place. But then those people that buy the wood aren't the people that make the pencils. They're the ones that transport it or that broker it and stuff like that. The paint is made from materials from many different places and stuff. And that, like, if you had a central command, you might think, oh, well, the best way to do this would be to have, like, we just have one area make all the wood for the entire nation. So, like, we'll just make California the lumber zone or something like that. And then we'll have and then we need a place for the lead, or for the pencil lead, the carbon. So we'll just make Georgia the coal mining state and things like that. And then we need a place for manufacturing, and we'll just make Detroit the manufacturing center, and on and on and on and stuff. And you might think that's silly and stuff, but two examples. One is every single sci-fi book, every single okay, there might be a few exceptions, but a large amount of fiction authors set up their worlds this way for two reasons. One, to communicate with the audience, and two, because their imagination and time for creation only lasts so long. So there's so many different worlds imagined where they can only imagine a sectioned off civilization. And then so many of the audience members like, I don't know, at least a significant portion, at least above 10%, if not much, much higher, somehow think that this is efficient or smart or organized or something like that. And you might say it is organized, but it's stupid. Because, like, yes, you could make one like you could make the West Coast all lumber production, but like, you can do more than just trees. Like, you can have trees growing, but then you could also, like, have deer, and you could also have you could actually turn the trees into a whole bunch of things. You can turn trees into wood, into paint, into glue, into oils, into cleaners, you can turn trees into coal, charcoal, coke, not quite graphite. I mean, you could if you really tried. And then the other thing is that trees don't necessarily grow everywhere. So there's going to be sections of area where the trees have a hard time growing because it's too high of elevation, it's too wet, too dry, too stony, there's water and stuff like that. Okay, and then again, back to the second reason why this type of intellectual, academic, big brain, central command thinking tends to have this stupid categorization concept. Actually, we can have a few more examples. So, second is Is that second? Okay, so first is authors. Authors tend to divvy things up into these sections and stuff. And at first we think it's sophisticated because it's got a good story to it, or it's got a romance to it, or it's got some fun nonsense techie or fantasy words connected with it, or because they said it's epic, so we call it epic, and stuff like that. Okay, second reason is city planning and stuff like that. When fewer people are making decisions, fewer decisions are made. Like city planning, zoning, and stuff like that. And even developments and stuff like that. City planners will say, "Oh, well, this area is all residential," and they'll just mark off a huge swath of land as residential, and then this area is agricultural, and this area is industrial, and this area is commercial, and stuff like that. So a few things with that. One is they have a limited number of choices and stuff, so they only pick, say, like 5 different types of land, and then maybe some combinations of those sometimes. When in reality there's pretty much infinite uses of land and stuff. And infinite combinations of those infinite options. And then second, again, like, you can make the sections smaller, but every section can always be subdivided into a better divisible use of land, or a better divisible use of resources. So you look at a city plot and you say, "Oh, well, this is pretty well split up. Like, I can see that this area of this little neighborhood is going to have a few places for storefronts and a school and stuff like that, so that traffic is more divvied up and they have services closer to their centers and stuff like that." But then you subdivide that and you say, "Oh, well, actually, this is really stupid. Like, I don't know, 10% of these 10,000 families don't really want or need a full-size house. They want, they could definitely do something more affordable, and they only need a small space. So, like, they'd probably be do better with townhomes or even apartments or condos or something like that." And then some of these people would like a much larger piece of land, and then another 10% of these people run businesses from their home and stuff, and they could use specialized land use. So, like, some of them could really use a larger yard to park vehicles for work, and some of them could use more storage space, and some of them could use more workshop space, and some of these other people often have a bunch of, like, parties and family over and stuff, and on and on and on and on. And so there's millions of different lifestyles and decisions and uses and stuff. And by having a few people make decisions for everybody, you end up removing all of the opportunities for those people to make decisions on how to use the resources, and potentially you limit the possibility of a lot of better utilizations occurring and stuff. Okay. And then the classic ones are like communist countries and stuff like that, where you have a handful of people at the top, or even you have just a diversified set of, like, say, even 1 million people out, where they're government leaders or stuff like that, where they're dictating to people, you do this, you do this, you do this. And a whole bunch of stupid decisions are made because the person making the decision is not the person doing the work and seeing what's going on and stuff. So if one person is making a decision at the top, and they're not allowing the people to adjust and think for themselves, then when you give somebody an order, you do this and do this and do this, and a shipment is late, or a batch comes in damaged, or trends change, or the weather changes, or anything changes or happens, then the system, the people, the community can't adapt, and basically they're suffering. People starve, people die, people freeze, people overheat and pass out, people get hurt, people starve, stuff like that. Okay. And you might think, okay, well, we've learned a lot of stuff since then, we can do it better now, and stuff. Okay. Then another one is computers. When people are designing computers, they don't have the capacity to think about everything and stuff, and so they specialize. That you have a company of thousands of people specialize on a single process. You have one company specialize in long-term memory. You have another company specialize in short-term memory. You have another company specialize in memory retrieval. You have another company specialize in processing. You have another company specialize in battery technology. You have another company specialize in screen technology. You have another company specialize in assembling. You have another company specialize in cases. You have another company specialize in power supplies. So like you have all these different companies specialized in stuff. And in some ways, that is showing that is having a community build something like the pencil and stuff like that. But like when you look at the real estate application, in reality, there are probably lots of situations where a more diversified setup would be much more effective and stuff. For example, what if instead of having to pull memory off of the hard drive and then over to the RAM and then over to the processor and then back to the RAM and then back to the processor and then back to the RAM and then back to the hard drive and then up to the screen and stuff like that? What if you could have long-term storage like right next to some some short-term fast random access memory or RAM, and I'm going to get so many of these terms wrong, but I have a very limited. Anyway, So what if you could have processing right next to memory, and stuff? And what if you could have long-term memory right next to short-term memory, and on and on and on and on, and stuff? And then what if you could have processing upon processing and stuff? Humans, an easy way to show where humans struggle, or a failing of humans, is to just play the game of telephone. That if you give a human a message and then you pass it down the line in a game of telephone, you'll very quickly see that we get things mixed up and messed up and stuff. But if you tell a human a story, then that human can work on that story and continue to develop it, and then tell a better story to someone else who can continue to work on it and tell a better story to someone else and a better story to someone else. And then the other thing is, multiple versions of these stories can be out there, and different versions can survive and different versions can die. And over, I don't know, a few thousand years, you can end up with some pretty amazing stories, because those things were changed. Trying to think. I don't know. Like, Aristotle can tell a story of elements, and then after a few thousand years, or after, I don't know, 1600 years, 1500 years, people are still telling versions of that story, but now they say the elements, instead of being earth, air, wind, fire, the elements are they found that air has multiple pieces, and so they say there's oxygen and nitrogen and carbon dioxide and things like that. And then there's water, and that water itself can even be subdivided. And then there's earth, and earth has a big number of different things and stuff. But then years later, people will tell you, oh, actually, there's significant portions of Earth that are the same. That like 90% of dirt and rock and all that stuff is a silica base, or is a silicate, not base, but it's derived. I don't know. Anyway, it's got silicone, and on and on and on and on and stuff. And these stories get handed down, and passed along and spread out and divvied up. And because people change up the story and stuff, we get these amazing processes and stuff. And so, what if a computer? And then when people think, we do the same thing. That every time we retrieve a memory, every time we see something, every time we talk about something, we make changes to it. And that change doesn't just occur at the very top level where we're conscious and experiencing things. That those changes occur every step, or I don't know, along multiple steps throughout the brain. So you have some memory and storage, and that memory goes through several retrieval systems, and analysis systems. And so like you want to remember, you try and pull up a memory of a movie, and you think, oh well, it's got the guy that was in this movie, and so you think about that movie and you think about the guy, and then you think about their face and stuff, and you try to imagine different facial like expressions, different attitudes, behaviors, mannerisms, different voices that could go along with that person's voice, different costumes that that person could be in, different clothes they're wearing, different materials, different lighting, different ways of doing their hair, like stage makeup that they might be in, so extra hair pieces or longer, shorter hair, injuries or wounds or blemishes or lack of blemishes and stuff. So you do a whole bunch of stuff to try and create many different permutations, and then search for those permutations, and then you get a few hits of like, oh, there's this movie and this movie and this movie and this movie and stuff, and then you check those movies against your memories and stuff, and then while you're trying to remember this, you're also branching out of different things that you think you remember from that movie and stuff. And then you start to access, then you start to locate various memories that you think are along the parameters and stuff. This shirt does not. Okay. You try and find various memories that fit the parameters. Morning.